Sex may be a hot topic, but how many of us can honestly say we're living our best sex and love life? Join me this week as I sit down with Sacha Fossa and we talk about how to rekindle, reclaim, or ignite your best sex and love life ever. Hi, I'm Adrienne Irizarry. I'm an East Asian medicine practitioner who is passionate about women's health and helping women to live their best lives. My goal is to put you in the driver's seat of your health, offering holistic solutions for a symptom-free life. Statements made in this program are for educational purposes only and not intended as a substitution for medical consultation or advice. We do not claim to diagnose, treat, or cure any diseases. This podcast is inclusive and welcomes all gender identities. The focus of the program is on biological function, and we will use the term women throughout, but it is referencing physiological and social challenges for biology, not identity. Come as you are, I am happy you're here and welcome all performances of identity. I hope you find something helpful in this show. Welcome back to another episode of the Reproductive Rebel podcast. I am so excited for today's conversation. It is a topic that I have been jonesing to bring onto this program, and I have met the perfect person to have this conversation with. So welcome to the show, Sacha.
Thank you. Very excited to be here as well.
So we have covered everything on this show, from pregnancy advocacy to the spiritual side of the heart-womb connection. And now we're going to talk about sex. This is long overdue. So
Certainly.
Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
I'm Sacha Fossa, and my business is Sacred Temple Arts, and it's all about the sacred temple of your body. And I'm a sex, intimacy, relationship, wellness coach, healer, and health art practitioner. So I combine education, the coaching with the healing arts. I have specialties in erotic blueprints, which is how you're erotically wired, and also in Tantra. And certificates in all these healing arts that I interweave how to overcome sexual health challenges and be at your best in sexual wellness. And essentially, I custom design programs to get your best sex and love life, which we're talking about today.
I love that. So this is a hot topic, not to be punny, but I have a lot of clients that come through the door that go, I feel like my libido left and didn't even leave a note. I'm having issues in my relationship with my partner. Is there anything that can be done about it? So because this topic is very personal, I think that's part of why it's taken me a little bit to bring this on the show, because I wanted to have you all be comfortable with me before bringing this very important but sensitive topic into the conversation. But we all walk into our intimate life with a story and a journey, and some of the time that can keep us from having the ultimate expression of connection and intimacy with a partner. Sometimes it is stage of life related. So I was so excited when I crossed paths with Sacha to be able to, and we're going to do a series of these. So please subscribe and make sure that you keep coming back for this juicy conversation, because we're going to talk about a lot of different things around your love life. So Sacha specializes in creating these custom opportunities, experiences for people to be able to reconnect with themselves and light that inner flame. So tell us a little bit about how you got into the work that you're doing now.
Well, I've always been a rebel.
Hence why you're on this show.
Yes. Since I was born, I didn't really understand this reality and its misery. And it was very challenging for me that people just weren't living their best lives, even as children, it felt like, and parents and so forth. And then I went through massive amounts of different types of trauma, from sexual trauma, familial trauma, lots and lots of ongoing trauma, which doesn't make for a fun nervous system and way of being in the world, right? Multiple suicide attempts, lots of anxiety, depression, drug and alcohol issues, you name it, I've been there, done it pretty much. And it was really coming back to the inner aliveness of my sexual energy that had been scorned and like put out. It was like I was always too much, even as a kid, right? I had too much energy. It was like too much of everything. Now I like wear that as a badge of honor instead of as a curse.
I love that. Me too.
Right? Yeah. And we know that's a way of being erotically wired, actually, which we'll discuss throughout our threads here of these shows. But essentially, what I see is if you're not living your best sex and love life, you're not really living your best life, right? And if you're having the best sex, and this is not about being partnered. I've had lived my best sex life for decades single at times, many years by myself. And so we really want to dive into that. It's the best sex and love life of your body. It's loving your sexuality. It's being turned on, inner glow, like awareness of just like how to run your energy and be alive on the planet and tuned in, right? So you think like nature and flowers and like everything that's alive and like flourishing and abundant and so beautiful. And that's the essence, right? We can tap into that I'm talking about. And then to bring that, so first we work with that inner core energy that's probably been programmed to not have any ability to come through in your body. And we want to deprogram all of that somatically and otherwise to help people where they realize that the inner joy that they may have had at some point in their life, whether it was way back to like childhood, is still there. It's your innate sense of well-being and wholeness. So we're just reclaiming that, right? And then so it's bringing that out. And then it's like, okay, well, what's your best sex and love life look like? And this is an ongoing process because like my best sex and love life 15 years ago, 20 is totally different. Even from last year, my best sex and love life that I'm creating this year is so different, right? It's so different. And part of the reason like why I am where I am right now is that one of the visuals I have for my best sex and love life, I'm in one of my bedrooms, is people make vision boards, right? Well, I make a best sex and love life board. And I really believe in like writing it down and documenting the vision and playing with it in creative, meditative ways, but also with the body, right? In your orgasms, in your self pleasure. And it's an ongoing discovery to just keep looking at like, how many orgasms do I want to be having? What types of orgasms? Do I want one partner and to be married? Do I want multiple partners? Do I want to just be with myself and explore every aspect of my sexuality in my own body, right? It's anything and everything. It's every person is unique to what fits for them. And so I love the creativity that I provide with every client that walks through my door, couples or individuals and different types of relationships. Everybody's got a different perspective of what their best sex and love life looks like, but they've never thought about it generally until they actually walk in the door. Then it's like, well, let's like tease this out like a business plan or career choice. Right?
Yeah, I love that. Well, it's so essential to who we are. And we do a lot of women-focused topics on this show, although the show welcomes all performances of identity and combinations of intimate relationships, right? But in the narrative, predominantly, women have been very suppressed. We're expected to be a lady in the street, but a freak in the bed. But that lady in the street is like this outdated Victorian era construct of being demure and you shouldn't be showing the things, but we want to see the things because we objectify women. There's so many this but not this, but this but not this kinds of statements around what it means to be a sexual being. And it's understood because our society reinforces it that women are not to desire sex, but we are supposed to be agreeable to sex, which I think is the weirdest, like, social construct ever. But it's really true. And so a lot of women feel very self-conscious about the fact that they have sexual desire. They feel guilty. They feel like they're not supposed to feel this way. They feel ashamed around having this energy. But honestly, the kind of turn on that Sacha is talking about is the same as when you look in the mirror and you know that you're wearing a fierce outfit and you look at yourself and you're like, girl, you look amazing today. And you can see it. You light up, you walk through the room differently. Like, that's the kind of turn on we're talking about. It is a basic energy inside of your body, and it's okay that it's there.
Actually, if it's not there, it's a symptom of ill health. And I will say that very point blank.
That is true.
That when people's sexual energy and their libido goes flat and they're like throwing it out, that's not important any longer, their health starts to decline quite rapidly, generally speaking. The libido is the life force energy in a huge way. And you don't have to desire to have multiple partners or lots of sex, just desire being alive. You can make your best sex and love life about, you know, how you enjoy redecorating your home and playing with all these fun things and doing whatever you like. It's so like broad, right? When it comes to what's perfect for each individual. And I also recommend trying all of the different aspects to be a whole human. I used to feel so much shame. It's lots of slut shaming, right? And oh God, all the years around all of that kind of stuff. And then being like, well, I'll be the rebel and I'll own it and I'll be the biggest slut imaginable. And like, this is empowering. And then I'm like, yeah, not so much empowering anymore. Not feeling great. What was that stage? Okay, we're done with that. What next?
Right. How are we going to renegotiate this narrative here?
So, life force, creating what you desire, being, playing with all edges of the spectrum, being the lady, being demure, right? It's super fun. That can be so sexy on its own. Just being happy with being a trad wife, which is a great new thing that's out there that people are going back enjoying as a phase. So, or not as a phase, as an actual way of living. And I think you can have your best sex life on any level of anything because we're not in boxes. The boxes are the programming on this planet that keep people absolutely, I will say it, fucking miserable.
Yes.
Miserable, right? And so it's creating outside of these boxes of what you want and desire. And bringing it back to women, I have noticed in my practice, men generally tend to come in and have had a clear plan as to what they want for their sex lives, right? And they've gone after it and they're here to get to the next place or get more of what it is they want. Where women are like, they haven't even had more than a clitoral orgasm, or some have never had an orgasm ever, or good sex, right?
Yeah.
So there's so much to explore.
Yeah.
And to really get women to design their best sex and love life with fun and enthusiasm, and to consider totally separate from what their husband's desiring, what are their desires for their body and their experience, right? Yeah. And when I was dating, I have mine every year. I write down Sacha's best sex and love life and all the things, right? I mean, let's get like, are you kidding? You think you can handle this? Right? And it's like, great, then move on because we're not wasting time, right? So even with dating, it's wonderful to have this concept because you want to find somebody that's into it and wants to create. So I believe we're creating our own best sex and love lives with our primary relationship, our body that we're born in and then we die in, right? And then we have our best sex and love life with our partner. So like my partner and I may have certain things, We do have certain things because we're wired a little differently. Well, a lot of us are wired a lot of different ways differently, even if it seems just a little different. It can be very different. And there's things that he desires that I don't really care about or want that much, right? Or like I might play that way, but I'm not really sure. And maybe he could get that met someplace else, right? In a way that still meets our container and our agreements. And so it's so wonderful to just get creative, right? It's a creation process. And there's so many wonderful tools that we can kind of give a little bit of a brief synopsis of today of some ideas for people. And then we'll go into them deeper in our further podcasts, right? Because each one is like just an amazing exploration in and of itself.
I love that. Yeah, let's definitely do that because I think as you were talking about, some women have only had a clitoral orgasm if they've had that. And I see this a lot in my practice when I talk about the fact that there are more than one type of orgasm and people's eyes glaze over and they're like, wait, what? It's like, oh, there is a range, there's a spectrum of things that your body is capable of. And women's bodies are built for pleasure. Yeah. We've been socialized to think that we're not. But when we look at the way that our body is anatomically built and how many nerve endings we have vis-a-vis our male counterparts, like our bodies are literally built for pleasure. And that pleasure does help with like basic biological things like preventing prolapse with an orgasm, being able to conceive because you have a higher chance of conception when you're able to orgasm during the activity, right?
Balancing hormones, better sleep, less stress, inner glow, all of these things, right? More orgasms, ladies.
Literally, like it's really wild. And because it's like, oh, I have to hide that I masturbate, or I have to hide that I'm actually enjoying this. And it's like, no, like you're suppressing your vitality.
Yeah.
By not embracing this part of who you are, which is a totally healthy, totally normal aspect of being human.
Yes. I think wellness, it's finally, we're like at a cutting edge that's happening finally, where sexual wellness needs to be part of wellness, period, right? They should not separate. I went through like over a decade, people telling me you need to separate your website into the healing arts and the sexual stuff you do. And I'm like, you're not getting it. They're never going to be separate. I'm trying to teach and bring it to the world. They're not separate. This is not separate. This is all wellness.
Yeah.
All wellness, right? Yeah. And it's getting there. So it's the sexual wellness piece and the ability for people to start with pleasure, especially women that are not ready yet to or don't understand how to fully get their libido activated, right? And this is a basic tool that I give all my clients for building your best sex and love life as well, is just creating pleasure lists and start micro and macro dosing pleasure in your lives, especially for women, like you were saying, because we're wired for pleasure. So if your libido has gone to shit, you need to start immediately feeding yourself with more pleasure. Probably some other things, diet and just like lifestyle wise, and maybe some good holistic products and someone to help you with hormonal balance, all the good stuff you offer and I offer. But essentially, if you're just like, well, get out of bed and start doing things that make you feel better. Slowly but surely.
Well, and I know that there are some moms that are listening to this that are like nodding and going, oh, that sounds great. However, I have a little person that wakes me up tapping my cheek in the morning and saying, Mommy, is it time for breakfast? Like, where am I supposed to fit that in? And it doesn't take a lot, but it's a form of self-nourishment. I don't want to use self-care because I feel like self-care is that become this like kitschy term that everybody friggin' uses. And what does that look like? And I mean, we hold a lot of shame and guilt around self-care just as a concept. But if you think about it like nourishment, You need this kind of literally love and attention back into your own cup in
Yes.
order to be able to be alive in the world. It keeps you from snapping at people. Like, we're
Yeah.
talking like basic vitality and life functions here, people.
Yes. Yes. That's just it, right? It's like sex is just a basic human function and need. It should be treated as such, and one of the most important ones. And that includes self-pleasuring. I like to call it instead of masturbation because there's so many issues around the words of masturbation. Blah, blah, blah. And it really is self-pleasure, but it's also a self-care and a sexual and just a regular wellness practice. It comes back to basic keeping yourself healthy, alive, exploring, finding new ways to feel. And any mom that's like thinks this is part of like, oh, it's I can't do this, I don't have enough time and so forth. Do you want your kids to grow up feeling like they just aren't like alive and that their sexual aliveness isn't okay and that they can't be like having a turned on life, a basic pleasurable happy life? Because that's what you're modeling if you're just stressed out, exhausted, overwhelmed, and not in any pleasure, right? And again, that's going to have serious health consequences down the road if it hasn't started to already.
Well, and I see it a lot for women right around perimenopause. And we can talk about this in detail in a later episode. But I do see a lot of women that are like late 40s, early 50s that are like, yep, I would much rather watch my show than go be intimate with my partner. And it's not that I don't love them, I love them, but my get up and go has got up and left. And I'm just not interested the same way. And this is where I loved what you were saying earlier about being creative and curious and constantly renegotiating what it is that you want. Because just because that like quickie mentality might have worked when you were younger and your arousal was a little more at the surface, you didn't have quite as many life stresses that are now occupying residence in your brain. Then as you get older, you have a mortgage, a family, a partridge in a pear tree, a career, a business, all the things. And
Yeah.
they all take up residence in your brain. So that plus hormonal changes that come in that particular phase of life, it can be very hard to once again rekindle or find that flame within yourself again, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It
That's right.
is normal to have different changes in your level of interest as your hormones change throughout your life. But being completely flatlined is absolutely one of those ways that your body is trying to communicate lovingly to you, like, hey, I need a little bit of love and support here.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, how would you get started? Because I know people are listening to this going, that sounds great,
Exciting,
guys.
right?
But like,
Yeah.
obviously, you guys have it kind of figured out, but I don't even know where to start. So, if you were to make a recommendation in terms of just beginning, especially for very overscheduled, busy people, which a lot of us fall into that category, how would you begin?
Well, for those that aren't ready to sign up for a program and have it all hacked for them in a beautiful, consistent, ongoing, supportive, right, amazing way, I would recommend that people at least just watch your podcast, go to my YouTube channel, Sasha's Sacred Temple Arts, and watch free videos when you can. And then actually do some of the practices and put some of the things into play. And the pleasure list would be really important. Sit down and just take some breaths and go into your happy space of some sort of relaxation and go, what would it look like if I was having my best sex and love life? What does it look like in terms of my sex, intimacy with myself, with a partner and partners, or my husband, or whatever, but also like now into the future? What do I really want? What do I want more of? What do I want less of? And can you have a conversation with your partner and ask them, right? What is it that you really want? And can we design something together, right? So even like an erotic bucket list. Hey, let's create an erotic bucket list for the next year, right? and start doing it. Put it into practice, just like you make your vacation goals, right? Or where you want to be family wise in a year, financially, or and other things. This is just as important, if not more important. Right?
Yes, because it's magnetic for all
Yes.
those other things.
Yeah. Yeah. And if, so I'll just say to you, if you're not putting yourself or you and your partner first, I mean, of course, you're putting your kids first too, but you still have to put on your own oxygen mask ahead. And that's just the reality. The kids are going to be so much better off if you're having multiple orgasms and happy, and the whole house feels good, and everybody's just like relaxed and enjoying life compared to how a lot of other things are. So, those basics, and a lot of people have heard of the love languages, right? I would say you gotta get on the love language thing because you need to feed yourself in your love languages and you need to feed your partner in the love languages. If you're gonna build a best love life, and even for sex life too, love languages are huge. Learning how to feed, and then this is what I teach all my clients about them, how to find out yours, how to feed each other, and then the erotic blueprints, which we're going to talk about, which is your sex languages, how you're erotically wired. You got to know what yours are, what your partners are, how to feed in these, and are you stuck in too much of a range of like way into just like one side of a blueprint, or are you in the shadow sides of the blueprints? This is all stuff I hack for clients too. If you do it, if you're interested, you can find on my website, sacredtemplearts.com, ton of information about blueprints. You can find the link to the quiz, all of that kind of stuff, just FYI. But so feeding, love languages, blueprints, attachment styles, right? This is important, especially if you're dating or looking for a relationship. Because if you don't understand the attachment styles, you could be seeking and finding those that aren't really a good match for you, which I know for myself, I did for so many years, so many years. And my whole sex and love life turned around when I stopped going for the same type of rut of being stuck in these like attachment dynamics that just were not fun between myself and others. And when I learned about attachment styles, and then I was like, oh, I want to learn how to become secure attachment and not be an insecure. That's entirely possible too. And so that's part of, I believe, if you really want to have your best sex and love life, you want to learn how to get from insecure attachment style to secure attachment style and work on that. You'll just be happier and healthier, and it's okay to be insecurely attached. It's always it's the baseline of how you've been molded. We may go back and forth to that at times, especially in stressful times, but in general, people are kind of happier if they're in secure relationships, and even just the secure attachment style in their own bodies feels like a better place to be a lot of times, right? For people. So you talked a bit about stages, right? Well, part of Jaya's work that I teach, she created the blueprints. We all go through 5 stages or states of sexuality. And this can be in a day, and it's also certainly in our lifetime. So for women that are like, my libido's just dead and I'm not feeling well or I'm not into it, well, you're in a resting or healing phase then. But would you like to come out of that phase and go into curious and then maybe adventurous or maybe transformational, which is where you're creating with your sexual energy for healing and for new things in your life and that type of thing? We won't go deep into the states, but it's okay to just like be more aware too that part of your best sex and love life is, oh, these are different states and stages, but I don't want to get stuck in one for the rest of my life, right? That's when you get sexless relationships, and they're not the healthiest relationships in general for people at all, right? I design for clients I help them design their intimacy plan. You got to have an intimacy plan. You should have one pre-birth, especially post-birth, right? And ongoing, even if you're empty nested, because an intimacy plan is going to have how you schedule every week, every month, what you do daily to connect, what you do weekly to connect, what you do monthly to connect, what you even do each year that's like a big piece of it, right? Intimacy plan is part of your best sex and love life because it's how you are connecting and actually doing things that are expanding, right, in the world for yourself. So if it's with another, it's your date nights, but then your sex dates and your connection practices that you do each day as well. And again, I hack that for clients. So it's like I can just feed them. Here's all the options, choose from these things, and to have fun things like to learn erotic games, right? Because if we really want to look at it, eroticism is play for adults, right?
I like that.
And adults have to play too.
Creative energy comes
It's
from
our
play.
creative energy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
love that. So there was a couple of things there that was awesome, and I want to unpack it just a little bit. So the love languages piece, if anyone listening is not familiar with Gary Chapman's The Five Love Languages, that is what Sacha is talking about. It is a phenomenal book. One of the first, and it was funny when I first started dating my husband, I was so like adamant that I'm like, okay, you're gonna do this. And he's like, I'm not a big reader. And I'm like, that's fine, but we need to navigate this because I want to know how I can show you that I love you best in a way that you're going to understand. So, you can say I love you. And if you're not a words of affirmation person, you're like, oh, that's great. Thanks. But if you're an acts of service person, having that person clean up the kitchen, they're like, oh my God, right? You're amazing.
Yeah.
So different things speak to the body, right? And like how you feel loved and appreciated looks different. So the love languages book is so important. It was a really great conversation starter when I first started dating my husband because I wanted to understand and not just assume that I understood what made him tick based on the way that he moved through the world, right? And it's been very helpful. I mean, we've been married over 10 years now, and I keep coming back to that because you're right. When things get stressful times versus non-stressful times, the way that things flow are different. Sometimes it's even cyclical, like the way a woman feels during her cycle. And I'm going to bring my background into it a little bit. If she is spleen chi deficient, she's going to worry about the state of the relationship just before the bleed. And then the bleed comes and everything feels okay.
That's interesting because we say it's that women tend to, the majority go into sensual blueprint shadow, which is the same thing you're describing.
Oh.
Spleen deficiency.
I love that. See, and I didn't even realize that. I learned something new. This is exactly why I wanted to have Sacha on. But it's true.
Yeah.
Like, and sometimes the irritability comes out of the fact that the body really does need an orgasm and pelvic floor tension.
Most of the time. And same with headaches. That old thing of like, oh, I have a headache. Well, then you should definitely go have some orgasms right now.
Yes.
That headache will go away.
Well,
even migraines, I've had women just be willing to experiment with it, and lo and behold.
Yep. Well, pelvic steaming works very similarly.
Yeah.
So it's like that whole idea of being able to get stuck energy in your pelvis moving relieves so many different kinds of pain, physical and emotional, in the body. So yes, that whole I have a headache, like, it makes me laugh.
Yeah.
The only time that I can say that I'd have a hard time with that is I feel bloated, I can't breathe.
And then you're like, now I really need to get some energy moving too, right?
Exactly. We're gonna have to get creative. I can't breathe.
Yep. Yep. So many ways to play and be creative, right? That's the whole thing too for any women out there that have vaginal pain or different things going on or have had trauma and they're just kind of really shut down. The gentlest and most kindest thing you could do to yourself is not shut all the way down, but start slowly titrating, getting the help you need to slowly awaken again. to slowly allow your body to show you how to awaken into all the types of orgasms and sexual healing that's actually possible, that the body naturally wants to do. But it will have to go into a contraction first, then start to, the more contracted you go into, then the more you're going to be able to open. But it's kind of like if you put your hand in a fist like this, right? Well, if I do it for a long time, it's harder for my hand to naturally open, right? Than if I just went like that. Right?
Yeah. Yep. Yep. It's really incredible. The other thing that you mentioned that I was like, oh, I know that a lot of people don't do this, that I thought was really juicy, was the intimacy plan. We have assumptions that we make in our culture around whose job it is to do what.
Yeah.
And we also, unfortunately, have this misunderstanding that our partner is supposed to know exactly what we want without communication or without a high level of communication. You're supposed to just read my mind.
Yes.
And that sets everybody in the equation up for failure.
Yep. Best sex in love life is communication as lubrication.
Oh, I like that. I like that.
Lubrication. Gotta have communication, and there always should be an open communication around intimacy and sex with your partner. And if there isn't, hire someone to help you to figure out how to do that, because I do that a lot for people that have never felt comfortable talking about sex, or they want to talk about it, their partner doesn't, they've been together forever. You have to have the communication lines really wide open and on an ongoing basis, right? To create the best sex and love life for anybody.
Well, and that can evolve, right? So, like, maybe you had your best sex and love life for quite a number of years, and then either because of stage of life, or, I mean, men go through andropause, women go through menopause. There's hormonal and chemical changes that are happening during that time frame. The way men's bodies perform starts to change. The way women's bodies perform start to change. And if you internalize this as quote unquote, something is broken or something is wrong, rather than going, oh, this is a normal change that is happening. We just have to be able to navigate, renegotiate.
Yeah. Play a new piece.
Yeah, exactly.
Open up your energy fields to multiple types of energy orgasms and incredible experiences, where I have clients in their 70s having their best sex and love life because they never knew they could have this many orgasms. They never knew they could talk so openly about sex. They didn't know even their own basic anatomy that I taught them of where everything is. And now turn it all on, right? So it's, again, the aging program is a program in our society that is so detrimental to our well-being, because I see clients getting more alive and healthier well into their 70s, and they're having more orgasms and more erotic experiences. And I know for myself that I've been in perimenopause, things were going boop, downhill, sister, quick. I was like, no. What is happening? 25 pounds bigger and everything, all these things. And I turned it around. And it took time to relearn some new things, taught a lot. I had to start playing with some new products, natural products, homeopathic remedies for even menopause. I love the holistic stuff. I know people do all kinds of different things. I'm going to start steaming soon. I like love to play with. So even just like your best sex and love life is so unique. So is everyone's healing path, right? So I just had to play around with finding the right things for my body. And one of the things I found was that cervical orgasms completely, I like the most amazing thing that my body loves at this stage of life, that is like newly found on this very deep, incredible level. And also in Tantra, they say that when women go through menopause, that the polarity shifts in the body, which makes perfect sense, right? Probably Chinese medicine says the same thing.
It does.
So you're not creating babies any longer. So the energy goes here. to the heart, to the breast, right? So in Diane Richardson's book, Tantra and Menopause, she talks about the importance of if women have lost their libido, they need to get in touch with their breast and their heart again, especially through perimenopause and menopause. So that way things start to balance and feel the juiciness of all of it and open again, right? And it's so easy to get our hearts shut down and to have our pussy shut down, right? Our vulvas and the energy. And it's like, no, get it all open and alive again.
Mm-hmm. It's so important because especially as we go through this transition, like I said, we could do a whole episode just on
Yeah.
that. As we go through that transition, yes, the polarity changes. I totally talk about that with people all the time. The energy is no longer going from heart to womb to create life. It's going from womb to heart to create your life. And
Your
so,
best sex and love life, right?
yes, your best sex and love life. You're
All of your life.
figuring out how you want to live your
Yes.
next chapter. They look at it as coming into second spring. It is a new beginning
Yeah.
in your life, and your vitality is different because you're no longer pouring your chi into the giving of life. You're pouring it into what you want to create in your life. So, to me, it makes complete sense that the older you get, the more that engine should rev
Yes.
rather than the other way around.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I'm still in the process of listening to it, but Luann Brizendine, who's a famous neuroscientist who wrote The Female Brain as well as The Male Brain. And there's a cute movie that you can watch from like 10, 15 years ago called The Female Brain based on her research. But her latest book is called The Upgrade. And it's all the new neuroscience on how menopause is not actually this horrific, terrible, miserable, worst thing ever. It is an upgrade to your entire system, your brain, how you live, how you function, all of it. So I think it's important that women start to also, again, ditch the old programs that aren't really helping us to feel any better or empowered, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And what could be different? I'm all about this. I'm in upgrade mode and I'm just going to keep upgrading.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an upgrade because your brain chemistry is changing and the veil of estrogen. I had this incredible interview with Jane Hardwick Collins earlier this season, and she was talking about how as the veil of estrogen drops, the way that you communicate is different. You're no longer willing to sweep things under the rug to keep the peace. And there's not that you're looking for a fight, but more just that you're more in your truth. You're more authentically who you are because you're no longer walking on eggshells trying to like keep balance and make everyone happy. You're just authentically being who you are. So it's like I loved my 30s so much more than my 20s. And my 40s have been amazing so far because the older I get, less of a fuck I give about what anybody else thinks. And I love that on that authenticity and that realness that I'm starting to move through the world with. And it absolutely affects my sex and love life as well as my business. And I mean, this show, if anybody's been following this show since the beginning, you've actually watched Adrian's estrogen levels change because at the beginning it was very much more an interview style, and now this is your real organic, I swear for emphasis and clarity kind of show, right? Which is what I wanted deep down in my soul when I first started this program. And it's evolved, right? I've been evolving. You've been watching me evolve as I go through as an interviewer, as a host, all these things. And I wanted to bring these kinds of real conversations to the forefront. And honestly, as my estrogen levels change, the easier that flows. The more real that gets, the more I give way less of a shit because I know I'm going to be for some people and not for others, and that's okay. And that same kind of confidence comes from the bedroom, and especially in this phase of your life. Although it can be really unsettling because you're navigating a completely new way of moving through the world and your body feels very different. And the mindset that you go into it with, it can feel like it's betraying you because it's not functioning the way that you would expect or anticipate it would. But it just means that you're navigating a new landscape. It doesn't mean that the body is failing you. It's just changing.
Yeah. And what I teach, again, when you get back to this, like the sacred temple, right? And your best sex and love life is based on your body's pleasure and it being happy, right? It's really primarily this connection here that the body leads you in. The direction of what types of orgasms, what types of erotic play, what types of touch, and what kinds of ways do I want to explore things more and just have more aliveness, just more aliveness in the body.
I love that. And I think that's probably a really great place to put a pin for our next episode because we're actually going to dive into what it means to live in an erotic blueprint, experience erotic blueprint, what all those things mean, what they would mean for you in terms of not only how you move through the world outside of the house, but what you do behind closed doors, like all that kind of stuff. I'm so excited that Sacha agreed to do this series with me because I think it's a super important topic that we just need to talk more about and more openly about because it is such a vital marker in your health. And the show's all about holistic wellness, right? Like, how can you talk about holistic wellness when you're not looking at the spiritual, the sexual, the energetic? Like, it isn't just about physical symptoms. Physical symptoms are a manifestation of your field being out of alignment.
Yeah.
So this is a really critical part to your overall health picture. So if people want to find you, Sacha, and do this inventory, I think my husband and I are going to have to do this because I think this is awesome. I mean, we just had a baby, right? So like it looks different. Like we have a little human who cries at the most inopportune times. And so how do you keep things alive during stuff like that, right? So because
doesn't work if you depend on spontaneity. Tell you that.
It totally doesn't. Real talk from a 7-month postpartum woman. So I love the idea of this taking inventory in like the small short-term goals as well as the bigger long-term as well, because I think that is so critically important. So if people want to get in touch with you to be able to start this amazing work, how can they get a hold of you?
Well, you can go to my website, Sacred Temple Arts. So it's the artsplural.com. And I have a place you can sign up for a complimentary consultation. Plus, you can learn about the blueprints, my best sex and love life programs, my holistic healing arts, lots of links on there to my YouTube channel and to other podcasts and things I've done. I don't do much on Facebook, Instagram, so forth. You really won't find much there for me because I'm just not a great advocate for social media in some ways and don't enjoy being on it. So YouTube, but definitely my website is the most crucial piece. And if it doesn't show up, Google my name, Sacha Fossa, and I'm sure you'll have the links in the...
Absolutely.
Yeah, great.
Absolutely. So everything to get a hold of Sacha will be in the show notes. And until next time, Sacha will be joining us again. So again, make sure you subscribe and keep an eye open because Sacha and I have a few of these awesome episodes planned, and it's something that you won't want to miss. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Reproductive Rebel. Reproductive Rebel is recorded by certified peri-steam hydrotherapist and acutonics practitioner, herbalist, and Chinese nutritional therapist Adrienne Irizarry of Moon Essence LLC. If you are interested in setting up an appointment for one-on-one support, ordering from our store, or checking out our course offerings, visit our website at moonessence.life. Be sure to subscribe to our newsletter and get insider information on upcoming events and offerings. Join the conversation. Like and follow us at Moon Essence Me on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. Your voices make this program possible. Thank you all for your continued support.